Right now, here in the Coralina Coral Studio, I welcome the viewers of freedom. Let's get straight to the important news. Ukraine has brought home 185 prisoners of war. President Volodymyr Zelensky announced this. Of them, 183 are privates and sergeants, and 2 are officers, servicemen from the armed forces, the National Guard, and the State Border Guard Service. Among those returning are also civilians, 20 of our people. Everyone will definitely receive the necessary support, added Volodymyr Zelensky. Today in Odesa is a day of mourning for those who died during the downpour, and rescuers have completed their search operations. Due to the bad weather, 10 people lost their lives there, including a child. Most of the water accumulated in underground parking lots. Eliminating such flooding is the most difficult task. Rescuers from other regions arrived to help the people of Odesa. And let me remind you that due to the massive downpour, a red level of danger was declared in Odesa. Public transportation was not running, and schools and kindergartens switched to remote learning. Last night, the Russians attacked the Ukrzaliznytsia depot in Odesa. As a result of the shelling, a train engineer was injured, and he is receiving all the necessary assistance. This was reported by Alexei Kuleba, the Minister for Communities and Territories Development of Ukraine. According to him, the Russian army struck the railway infrastructure. Nearly 50,000 energy consumers in the region have been left without power. They managed to connect the damaged infrastructure to other sources wherever it was technically possible. Repair work is ongoing. After the Russian shelling on October 1st in Solovotezh, Kiev region, most residential buildings are still without power. Restoration efforts are continuing. Electricity has been restored to critical infrastructure facilities, schools, stores, pharmacies, and gas stations. Stable water supply has also been restored. There are 10 points of invincibility and mobile tents of the State Emergency Service operating in the city. A necessary reserve of generators, fuel, and water has been formed. All last night, Russian forces attacked Donetsk region with strike drones in Dreshkivka. 7 hits on residential infrastructure were recorded near the city, and they are wounded. In Kramatorsk, at least 8 Molniya-type drones struck residential areas, and the industrial parts of the city were damaged. At least 6 apartment buildings were affected. The power line was not damaged, and there were no casualties.
Somewhere, probably about 10 flashes and a really loud bang. Well, you could hear glass shattering somewhere. I live in the neighboring building, and my bedridden mother is here. Well, the apartment is mine too, but my bedridden mother is here. I came out to the balcony. In the living room, there were shards right in the wall, and in the bedroom, all the windows were blown out. Is your mom okay? Oh, just a little scratch. From the shrapnel, right?
Donetsk region is attacked daily by hundreds of Russian strike drones. Dozens of different types of drones fly into the area both day and night. Mobile fire teams are responsible for destroying such targets. Our film crew joined one of the Pomsta Brigade border guard crews on their night shift.
A guarantee is your peaceful sleep and our honest sky. With thunder until victory.
Under this motto, fighters of the 3rd Luhansk Border Detachment work day and night in Donetsk region. Hundreds of Russian strike drones of various types fly in here every day. We head out for a night combat shift with one of the mobile fire teams from the Pomsta Brigade. They change the time, they change. The drones find loopholes for themselves, so to speak, ways to fly through. And we react to this quickly. Yes.
Yes, in advance. That is, the team gets ready and the launcher is ready to move out. It takes them about 5 to 10 minutes to fully deploy.
In complete darkness, so as not to be spotted by Russian aerial reconnaissance, the crew heads out to their combat position. The area is open, and the soldiers keep a close watch on the sky. Just 5 minutes later, information comes in about the approach of the enemy's first drone. So right now, as I understand it, you already have some information that there is definitely information that something is flying.
Yes.
The soldiers have only a few seconds to load their weapons and, using the received coordinates, attack the incoming Russian target. The soldiers only share responsibility within their designated area. Throughout the night, their crew receives several orders to destroy targets. They move from one position to another.
Do you know how many combat missions there can be in general, so that there are really many targets?
Well, it could be 4 to 5 goals.
The crew consists of 6 people, all interchangeable. And if necessary, they can carry out combat missions of their brother-in-arms. The fighters are joking. Their group, the youngest in a team. We have a normal group, 45 plus. We have only one young guy. The soldier with a call sign Grandpa, like his comrade Serhiy, are both natives of Kiev. They admit that when they see the aftermath of Russian strikes on our hometown, it really gets to them.
Can you imagine that this happens in Kiev, for example?
It's terrifying. That's why we get really fired up when we take down those bastards, so they can't reach us.
Crews like these work in any weather. Gusty winds, like last night for example, make combat missions harder, and it's not easy for the fighters in the freezing cold either.
We've already made it through one winter. We're used to it. We already know how it should be.
The border guards stay on duty, while our group heads to the stationary positions of another crew. This is one of the main targets for Russian drones.
These are the most optimal, clear-cut situations. We arm ourselves with first aid kits, so that people can, right on the spot, in case of such an emergency situation.
In this equipped dugout, the guys monitor Russian drones around the clock. About half an hour before the launch of attack drones, they already have the necessary information. Then they track where the drone is flying and at what altitude.
We sit and keep watch. Maybe, let me say, they show up at 50 kilometers out. Others can show up too. Or they change altitude, or they change course, or they miss. In our location zone, they might show up at 20 kilometers.
Before shooting down a Russian target, the fighters have to make sure it's not flying over a populated area, and that its debris won't harm the residents. Alina Grimova, Yevgeny Karmazin from Donetsk region for Freedom TV channel.
Ukraine has brought back another group of children from the temporarily occupied territory of Kherson region. They're between 4 and 17 years old, according to the head of the Kherson Regional Military Administration, Alexander Prokudin. According to him, the children went through terrible things, and every story is proof of how the Russian occupiers rob children of their childhood, intimidate them, and impose false values. Today, all the rescued children are safe. Their return took place as part of the Ukrainian president's Bring Kids Back UA initiative and thanks to Save Ukraine. French law enforcement officers have detained 2 crew members of the Raburakaya tanker. It is considered to be a vessel of the Russian Shadow Fleet. This was reported by Prime Minister Sebastian Lecornu. Earlier, media outlets suggested that the Barakai might be connected to incidents involving drones that have been spotted in recent days since the vessel passed near its shores. French President Emmanuel Macron also said that the Barakai tanker is suspected of serious violations.
Thanks to our naval special forces and the crews of the French Navy, who this weekend boarded the Russian ghost tanker, which is now anchored off the coast of Saint Nazaire as part of a flag investigation. Their actions led to the detention of 2 crew members by the Maritime Gendarmerie, following a decision by the Brest prosecutor. Sebastian Lecornu, Prime Minister of France, on social network X.
A new meeting in the Ramstein format will take place on October 15th in Brussels. The meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group is being convened by the United Kingdom and Germany. The participation of Ukraine's Defense Minister Denis Shmyhal is expected, as well as a meeting of the Ukraine NATO Council. At the previous meeting in London, Germany announced the transfer of 2 Patriot systems to Ukraine, while the United Kingdom announced funding for the production of long-range drones. Let me remind you, the Ramstein format has been coordinating military aid to Ukraine since March 2022. Europe is ready to respond to violations of its airspace. This statement was made by French President Emmanuel Macron. According to him, Europe has the right to defend its own skies and will ensure its security is upheld. He also noted that the increasing number of air incidents demonstrates the need to strengthen defense, create effective early warning systems, and develop cooperation among European countries.
We indeed
need to have early warning systems in place to anticipate threats. They exist technically. We need to deter the enemy through long-range strike capabilities, thanks to European ballistic capabilities. So, this is about both innovation and Europe's production capacity at the same time.
The President of the European Council, Antonio Costa, insists that the EU must fulfill its commitments by paving the way for Ukraine's accession to the EU. He stated this at a press conference on Wednesday after the EU leaders' summit in Copenhagen. Costa emphasized that Ukraine is carrying out reforms related to joining the EU. The European Commission acknowledges this, and now it's the EU's turn to fulfill its commitments. The President of the European Council stressed that enlargement will only make Europe stronger. In Manchester, an unknown individual drove into people with a car and then attacked synagogue visitors with a knife. According to the police, there were many people in the building. As a result of the attack, 4 people were injured. The suspected attacker was neutralized by the police. Emergency services are working at the scene. According to media reports, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer is returning early from the Denmark summits to hold emergency meetings. He stated that additional security will be provided at synagogues across the United Kingdom. And now let's move on to the topic I suggest we discuss in more detail today. So, the meeting of the European political community in Copenhagen is ongoing. The President of Ukraine is taking an active part. Volodymyr Zelensky has already held meetings with the prime ministers of Denmark, Norway, Sweden, as well as with the presidents of the European Commission and the European Council and Antonio Costa. The work of the Ukrainian delegation at the summit continues. A special correspondent from the Freedom TV channel in Europe was following the main details of the meeting.
Ukraine is offering its experience in the use of drones and protection against them. This was stated today by the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, during his speech at the plenary session of the European political community in Copenhagen. The Ukrainian president believes that if Russia decides to attack Poland with drones or violate the airspace of the northern European countries, it would mean that such incidents could happen anywhere. Zelensky believes that fast and effective response forces are needed, forces that know how to counter drones efficiently.
Recent drone incidents across Europe are a clear sign that Russia still feels bold enough to escalate this war. And it wasn't just about Ukraine. Russia has always sought to divide the West, and Europe in particular. Today, their strategy is simple: divide Europe, stir up disputes, and prevent us from finding common ground. And I believe we must do exactly the opposite of what Russia expects. We need to act together, and we need to act by playing to our strengths. First of all, our guys are already here in Denmark, and there are experienced Ukrainians who know how to detect and shoot down attack drones, and they've already started carrying out their mission.
Nearly 50 leaders of European countries received invitations to this meeting. And speaking before this audience, the President of Ukraine called for the adoption of the 19th package of sanctions against Russia, as well as for serious consideration of how to truly take out of operation the entire Russian oil trade infrastructure, since it is precisely this that fuels Moscow's war machine. Additional sanctions against the captains and crews of the Shadow Fleet vessels, against the owners of the relevant companies, as well as sanctions against Russian oil terminals, could become instruments of pressure. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen called for an objective assessment of the threat that Russia poses to all of Europe.
I know that for some of you, the threat from Russia is absolutely obvious and very real. To others, it still seems distant, but none of us can afford to be naive anymore. The war has never been just about Ukraine. It concerns Europe, all our peoples, all our citizens, our values, and our freedom. And please, at least take a look at the history of our continent. From the expansion of the Russian Empire to Soviet tanks crossing borders during the Cold War, crushing hopes for freedom. And recent events tell us the same story. So why wouldn't it happen again? Russia is now turning into a war economy, using every means, every opportunity to intimidate, threaten, and divide us. Unfortunately, China is aiding this with North Korean soldiers and Iranian drones. And I see no signs that Putin's and Russia's imperial ambitions will end with Ukraine.
Ukraine's European partners are increasingly seeing it not as a recipient country in need of help, but as one of the main guarantors of security in the region. The threat of drones in the European Union is one of the most pressing issues, and Ukraine can help solve it.
Ukraine, of course, is a driving force when it comes to innovative ideas. For example, in the field of technologies to counter drones, cyber threats, and so on. And the fact that Ukraine is now helping Denmark, Poland, and NATO as a whole, essentially by sharing its experience accumulated over more than 3 years. 3.5 years of this terrible, unprovoked Russian offensive is extremely important.
The meeting of the European political community is not just a discussion about Ukraine. Today, migration issues were also discussed, but the large-scale war in Europe understandably overshadows other problems. Moscow is escalating its war against Europe, and EU countries are increasingly viewing Ukraine as an indispensable defense partner. Vitaly Sizov from Copenhagen for Freedom TV channel.
Subscribe to The Gaze and stay updated on the most important events, top news from Ukraine and all over the world, in-depth analysis, exclusive reports and interviews, all on hand in our channel. Join our community of viewers and stay tuned.